Welcome to the Boosting Business Breakthroughs podcast, where coaches gain the confidence, motivation, and expertise to make their next business breakthrough. I am your host, Lori Young, certified master marketer, business growth coach, and all-around truth teller. Breakthroughs can come with flashes of absolute clarity, sudden shifts in mindset, learning new skills, changes in habits, or anything else that changes the course of your coaching business. So if you're ready to be inspired and break through to your next level of growth, let's go. Welcome to episode 18 of the Boosting Business Breakthroughs podcast for coaches. Today, we are going to be talking about a very important subject, and that is how to legally protect yourself online as a coach. I first met Natalie, who is our guest, on Instagram. I saw some of her posts on Instagram, and they're really, really good. And it happened to be at the time that we were doing a new website for a client, and we were asking him for his privacy policies, and he was like, where do I get that? And I was like, actually, I don't know. And so I was so excited when I met Natalie, because it's like, oh yes, now I have a place where I can send all of the coaches that we work with to get legal advice and get the legal protection that they need. So I am going to formally introduce Natalie. Natalie is a small business attorney and legal resource for online entrepreneurs. Close to a decade ago, she opened up her own law firm. She was scared and felt so overwhelmed with all that was needed to start her own entrepreneurial journey. So she dug deep and did the research to find out what would not only keep her legally compliant, but also legally protected. With the boom of online entrepreneurs, she found herself consulting with more and more friends on what they legally needed for their businesses. She noticed that when they had the right legal documents in place, they emerged more confident and they truly stepped into the CEO version of themselves. Then it dawned on her, there is truly a desire for other female entrepreneurs to figure out what they legally need in their businesses. Natalie considers the life force behind her business to be empowerment. She believes helping other female entrepreneurs legally protect themselves will empower them to share more freely, post more freely, create more freely, change the world more freely. This butterfly effect is exactly what lights her up. She wants to let you all know that legally protecting your businesses is easier and cheaper than you think, and that when we have a strong legal base, we emerge more confident to share our gifts with the world. So thank you so much, Natalie, for being here. I love this topic. I have my own little stories that I can share that I think will make this fascinating as well. So why don't we just start with you sharing a little bit about yourself and like how you came to do what you do.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me here. So I'm an online business attorney and I work with small business owners. And I originally started my law practice as a bankruptcy attorney, which when I tell people that, they're like, oh, that sounds so boring and depressing.
Yeah,
but it does. Yeah. But I absolutely loved it. I was a law clerk for a very, very small local law firm, and they did bankruptcy law. And I just started in that area of law. And what I loved about working in that area of law was that I saw transformations in people, right? Like once they filed, and it's not what people think, right? People think it's like people that just are running their credit card debt and buying, lavish vacations. But we had a lot of small business owners, real estate agents, professionals. This was kind of like in the first little mini recession that we had. And there was, private practice doctors and attorneys. And when they filed, they had the relief of having that debt eliminated, and they could sleep better at night and they could enjoy time with their family again. And I got so many cards, emails, flowers from clients that were like, thank you so much for making this process easy. And thank you so much for allowing us to de-stress in this environment. And that's what lit me up. It wasn't so much the elimination of debt and that legal perspective, but that connection with my clients and the transformations that they saw is really what I loved about being in that area of law. Flash forward, I was there for a while, and my two partners, there was four of us in the firm, and the two partners approached the two associates, and they were like, well, we're going to retire, so you guys have to figure something out. They were sweet about it. I mean, I had about a 3-month runway to kind of figure out what I was going to do. And during that time, I applied to a bunch of jobs. I live in a pretty relatively small town, and I don't think it's actually that small anymore, but we have a very small local bar, and there's only one other firm in town that does bankruptcy law. So I was applying and not finding anything. I was getting jobs in all these other cities. And so by the time the end of that 3-month mark hit, I had to start my own firm. I literally didn't have any other choice. And I am not an entrepreneur by design.
Right.
I always wanted to be a 9-to-5er. My dad was a serial entrepreneur growing up, and my mom would be a 9-to-5er, and she'd get up in the morning and she'd like blow dry her hair and put on her red lipstick and pick out her outfit. And I thought it was just so romantic the way she got ready in the morning. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to work for somebody else.
Right.
So when I had to open up my own firm, I was confused. I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything. And despite what people probably think about law school, they don't teach you every area of law. They didn't teach me bankruptcy law. I literally just had to figure that out on my own. Yeah. And they didn't teach us business law, practical business law. So I had to figure everything out. How do I find an office? Do I need a website? Do I need a business license? Am I an LLC, a PC, a corp? Am I an S corp? What do I do for taxes? How do I pay myself? All of that. I had no idea what to do. And that's kind of where I ended up where I am now. As you said in the introduction, I realized that there really is a need for this out in especially in the online space, because when I started my own firm, we didn't have Instagram and we barely had Facebook. We definitely didn't have Facebook for business. And so if I had to figure it out, I kind of had an inkling that other people would have to figure it out too. And that's kind of where I landed today. And thankfully I met my husband 2 weeks after starting my firm. He's a serial entrepreneur, and he really supported and guided me through all those scary decisions. And I'm just so grateful to be where I am today.
That's awesome. So share with me like a business breakthrough that you've had, like something that shifted for you that kind of like changed the way you do business, changed the way you thought about business, or anything like that.
Yeah, it's, you asked that question and I can pinpoint one thing came to mind. I know exactly what it is. But when I moved into Instagram and when I started promoting myself on social media, that was a whole new world for me. At that same time, at that apex, I had joined a mastermind by this wonderful online coach. Her name is Ashley Gordon. She's the quantum coach on Instagram. Okay. And it was the first mastermind that she'd ever done. She was a manifestation coach at the time. And I don't know if it was intending to be a business mastermind or what exactly it was, but really learning how to, I'm so left-brained. So learning how to merge energetics and your business, that was such a breakthrough for me. Leading with energy, leading with positivity, right? Like I'm such a doer. I'm like the to-do list girl. I'm like checking it off. I feel very confident if I'm like running through my to-do list, but I don't always feel confident in, right? There's working on your business and then there's working in your business.
Right.
And the working on my business was the challenging part for me, promoting myself, figuring out my offerings. How do I talk to my ideal clients? How do I talk to my audience? And so really learning how to do that from an energetic perspective, it shifted my business. My business blew up after that. And it's something that I really always try to come back to because I think it's so important to learn. It's one thing to practice law. It's another thing to connect with my clients. And I always come back to energetics when I think about doing that.
That's cool. I don't know. I mean, obviously I know about the whole concept of, energy in business. I've heard the term energetics, but I haven't like ever really dived like deeply into it. So all I know is that it's working for you because I found you on social media. Your social media posts are really engaging, and I find them very educational, very engaging. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because like you said,
You.
it's helped to blow up your business.
Thank you. I
So,
actually really pride myself on that. I tell people that I have a no fluff Instagram account. You'll rarely see pictures of my kids or my husband because I really do try to provide a lot of value there. So I appreciate
and
you
you
saying
do.
that.
Yeah, you do. So I will definitely provide your Instagram account in the show notes so people can go follow you. And it's fascinating because I think that the legal side of our business, you as an attorney, obviously that's going to be one of the first things that you think about is legally protecting your business, because you're kind of all things legal. But myself, like as a marketing person, and I had another business before this, I was a coach. I was not thinking about like legally protecting my business. I was thinking about, how do I get clients? How do I market myself? How do I make money? All of those things. And, there's a few things that I ran into legally, but where does a person start? Like, let's say they're a new online coach, right? Or maybe they've been in business for a couple of years. Like, what do they need to be concerned with legally?
Yeah, so I have this concept that I like to call the legal wall, because most people tend to think about legal like layers of a cake, right? Like you start here and then you're in business a little bit, and then you move to this and da 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 da. And in actuality, people think about, oh, do I need my LLC? Do I need my contract? Should I get my trademark? What should I do? And instead of looking at it like layers of a cake, I really encourage people to look at it like sections of a wall that's protecting your business, right? Like I think of like
Okay.
a castle with a moat, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every different way that you can protect yourself from a legal perspective protects you in a different way, and you don't have to pick one first. And I know that's maybe not the answer that your audience wants to hear. People really want to be like, okay, start with your LLC or whatever it may be. But your LLC is going to protect you from a personal liability perspective, right? It's going to shelter and create space between yourself as a person and your personal assets and your business. Your contracts are going to protect you in your interactions and your dealings with your clients and or your consumers. This is also if you're like a products-based business. And then your trademarks and copyrights are going to protect you in intellectual property perspective. So they're going to protect your name or your original content or your original work. And they all do it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So what I encourage people is a couple things, and we'll go back to this energetics that we talked about earlier. Number one, what lights you up? What do you really, really want to protect? If like working with a client is going to scare you, then maybe start with your contracts.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you have the most amazing business name or course name and you're scared to talk about it because you want to build it, but then you're in this weird state between I can't really build it because I don't want to launch it because I don't want to talk about it, then start with your trademark. And then I also tell people, start where you financially can lie. Like I hired a coach when I first started my online portion of my business.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not an easy decision for me because it was a lot of money for me,
Right.
especially when you're not making any money. And I'm so thankful and grateful that I did that. But not everybody has the same types of resources at the same time to throw at legal, right? People
Right.
prioritize their marketing, their branding, working with a coach. Find where you can do something from a legal perspective and go there. If you can spend the money on an LLC, then do that. And most of my products and services are on a payment plan. So
Mm-hmm.
legal can be really affordable, but start with energetics, see what lights you up, and then take a look at your financials and see what you can make work. Just start somewhere. That's usually what I tell people.
Okay. Okay. So, what would be the best way for us to kind of unpack each of these areas? So, like the LLC, the contracts piece, and then like the trademark piece. Where would you suggest we start?
Again, start where energetically, where you feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's what you want to protect. So if you have a business name that you love, then start there. I mean, it really kind of just depends. A trademark will take a year. It's a year-long process. Most people
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that. So it is an investment in time as well as obviously an investment in money in your business. But it is really important to get that protected before you launch anything, because someone else might take that name if you're not careful.
Okay, let's talk about that, because
Yeah.
there are so many business names, course names, like so many different names out there. And there's a lot of people that share even the same name. So how do we decide like what needs to be trademarked?
Yeah. So a trademark will protect any name in your business name, course name, product name, podcast name, slogan. That's all going to be protected through a trademark. And the whole purpose of a trademark is to prevent brand dilution. So if there are multiple courses, multiple podcasts, multiple businesses with either the exact name or something similar, that's going to cause confusion and it's going to cause dilution for your brand, right? Like, let's say you start your business and your business name is A Beautiful Life. And you tell your friends, I started this coaching business. I'm a life coach. It's called A Beautiful Life. Look me up on Google. And go on Instagram, give me a like and support me. And they go on there and there's like 5 or 6 different, Instagram account handles that are really similar. It's A Beautiful Life, A Beautiful Life, The Beautiful Life, My Beautiful Life. And your friends are going to come back and be like, well, which one are you? I totally forgot what you said.
Right.
And that is the whole purpose of a trademark. A trademark is going to prevent someone else from either having that exact name or something substantially similar so as to cause confusion. So trademarks are really important to do early on in your business, because if you can imagine launching something, anything, business, podcast, course, whatever, product, and then all of a sudden, all of these other ones pop up a year down the road, 2 years down the road, or someone else goes out and gets that trademark, now you have to rebrand. So it's something that should be a priority in people's businesses. And you can file for a trademark even before you've launched anything. Most people don't realize that. There's a specific application that you can file, and it says, I'm not using this name yet, but I intend to use this name. And that will give you immediate protection. So you can file for that application and then start talking about the name right away without worrying about someone else using it or filing a trademark before you.
Right. So I wanted to share just a little story with listeners and you. So when I had my coaching business, I coached moms, and I had started off with one business name that eventually it just didn't resonate with me. And so I went through a rebrand, and I really wanted to come up with something really cool and something that would be memorable. So I came up with the word momnificent. And at the time, nobody was using that word. And I was smart enough to go out and get that phrase trademarked. And I got a federal trademark on it. My company name was Momnificent. My book was The Momnificent Life. So that I was using it everywhere. And the funny thing is, it wasn't too long after that I started seeing other people using the word momnificent. And honestly, even though I was trademarked, I didn't know like what to do about those people that it's like, hey, you're using my trademarked name. So what do you advise people to do when they see, because people will still try to use your name, even though it's trademarked?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. Without a trademark, you can merely request someone to stop using it, right? And you do have what's called common law intellectual property protection, meaning that you were the first one to use it, and it's the first one to use it in commerce, right? If you have a Momnificent blog, that's not going to qualify for a trademark.
Okay.
So what most people do is they come up with a name and then they see all these other people using it, and then they're like, oh my God, now I need a trademark, right? Well, you have common law intellectual property rights. So you can say to them, hey, could you stop using the name? But that's really kind of where it ends until you file for a trademark and receive full registration on a trademark. Not everything is eligible for a trademark. Like I said, it has to be used in commerce. I won't give you all the trademark rules and bore you here, but not everything is eligible for a trademark. But once you receive the full registration, if you then notice people using it, then you can threaten them with a lawsuit. Now, I am not, may come as a shock, but I am not a contentious attorney. I don't love a good dog fight. Like,
right.
Most people think attorneys are like that, and it's just not in my personality. I'm a more peaceful, gentle approach to things. But I'm not advocating you sue people, but you can threaten a lawsuit because you do have that power to sue once you receive full registration. Otherwise, you can't unless you have a full trademark registration. So certainly having a conversation, sending a cease and desist letter, letting people know, hey, I have a full trademark and this is how it's registered. You want to make sure a couple things. Number one, that they're in the country where you have your fully registered trademark. So if you are in the US and they are in Australia, if you don't have a trademark in Australia, then sorry.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially that's really important in this day and age because we're all over the web. It can be challenging. So number one, make sure that they're in the same country where you have your trademark. I'm only going to speak to the US because that's where I'm licensed to file trademarks. Number two, make sure that they're in the same realm that you are. So you can have the same registered trademark name if it's not going to cause confusion. And typically that means if it's filed in a separate class. So for example, if I say the word Colgate, you're going to think of Colgate toothpaste.
Right.
But there's also a Colgate mattress company, and they are also allowed to have a trademark because I'm not going to run into a mattress store and say, hey, can I get a Colgate, and expect them to hand me a tube of toothpaste, right? There's no brand confusion there. Same thing with Delta Airlines, Delta Faucets, right? There's a whole bunch of them. So you want to make sure, step number two, that they are in the same space that you are in. If it's a podcast, is that also a podcast? If you're a coach, is that also a coach? Number three, if there's any confusion, then speak with an attorney and we can help you kind of digest and make sure that the space that they are moving in is actually violating your registered trademark. So I get the question from a lot of people, do I need an attorney to file for a trademark? And the answer is no. It is paperwork that you could fill out yourself. However, there are some strategies to filing for a trademark. And usually it is what happens in this scenario. I get a lot of clients that will consult with me and then they're like, oh, I'm going to try to do it myself. And then they do it. And then either they have an issue with their application or they get the registration and then people are violating. And I'm like, well, you didn't actually include that in your trademark registration, so you can't actually stop them.
Got it.
So there is strategy to filing for a trademark. It's just like doing anything else in the law, right? Could you defend yourself at a DMV hearing if you feel like, sure, you totally could, but there is law to it, right?
Right.
So, speak with an attorney, make sure that they are evaluating your registration. If you did file with an attorney, go back to that attorney that assisted you in filing for that application. I have an ongoing service with my clients who I filed a full registration for. I think it's under $200 a month, and I will go and send cease and desist. They don't even know about it, just behind my attorney's backs. I'm like, by the way, I sent 5 cease and desist letters this month. If you did file with an attorney, go back to the attorney that you filed with, have them evaluate your application, make sure that they are actually in violation. And what a lot of people don't realize is about 3 years ago, during the quiet of COVID, the U.S. Supreme Court changed trademark law. Nobody even heard about it because everyone was stuck in quarantine. Right. It used to be that you could only sue someone if they've used a trademark name and they weren't aware of it. So what would end up happening is that all these businesses were really going through the motions and filing for their trademarks. They were suing people. And then when that person would get to court, they would go, I had no idea Nike had a trademark, right? I had no knowledge.
Right.
They changed that law. Now you can be sued for trademark infringement even if you had no idea that a trademark existed or that you're violating that trademark. It put the powers back into the hands of the business owners that are doing the right thing and going through the steps and protecting their brand and their names. So if you have a full registration, You could threaten a lawsuit. You could also sue them. You could also immediately demand damages, and they legally have to pay it. So what
Got
a
it.
lot of people, and then from the other side of that, if you're not filing your trademark, or you're not at least looking to make sure that there's not another trademark out there, you could be building your course, launching it, and then all of a sudden you get a letter from an attorney that says, well, sorry, you're violating our client's trademark, and now you owe us $20,000, and
Oh,
you can't get out of it.
oh,
And there's nothing you can do. You legally owe it.
oh, wow. That's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why we're talking today, because I think it is so, it does sting. And it is very important for coaches to understand this. Help me understand, because I have a specific question that I want to ask, but help me understand, like, okay, there's trademarking and then there's copywriting.
Yeah.
Right? So what would be considered like copyrighted material? Because people, I see stuff online all the time. Oh my gosh, this person just copied my entire course. This person just copied my entire blog post, whatever. Like, let's talk about copywriting and like what protection we have around our own personal content.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So people get confused between copyrights and trademarks all the time, and they do work in a very similar way. So again, trademarks are protecting names, ... Copyrights are protecting what's considered original works of art. So this would be blog posts, literature, music, videos, graphics, images, right? Anything that you are creating, not a name, but anything you're creating, courses, workbooks, trainings. That's all protected by copyrights. And those two vehicles work in the same sense, where if you don't have a full registration, trademark or copyright registration, then you can really ask someone to stop using it because you only have common law protection, right? If you go through the process of filing for your copyright, which by the way is a way less stressful process than a trademark, it's not as expensive, and it's a lot shorter of an evaluation. It's about 3 months versus a year. And it's very cost effective. But if you have a full registration, now again, you can threaten a lawsuit. You can threaten demand for damages. You can really kind of pack the punch in terms of having someone remove it. Evaluate, and this is the difference between a trademark and a copyright is that a copyright can be on a on a worldwide level, not just a national level. So someone in Australia has copied your book and using it and selling it, right? There's a violation there.
Right.
But someone else has the same name in Australia that's trademarked, and you're going to be far-fetched to kind of go after them. So what I would encourage people to do, and again, it's laborious only in the sense that, like, when you're in that hyper creative mode and you're building your website, you're writing your blogs, you're creating your course, people don't then think, okay, I'm done. I'm going to launch it. It's going to be great. Now I'm going to file my copyright. Like, that's not on people's checklist of things to do.
Right.
It should be, but it's not. But I do encourage people to then submit their work for copyright registration. I can also assist with that. Again, it's really affordable. And when you do that, you can then really go after someone and have them remove it. And I don't know if there may be someone in your audience that this happened to, or they know someone that this has happened to, but it's the same process where, you find this image that you love, you slap it on your website, and all of a sudden you get a letter like from a photographer, that's my image, and now you owe me $1,500 for using it. It's a copywritten image. They can literally just demand damages because they should, right? They took this photo. You can't just use it. And by the way, what I think people don't understand is a number of things. Number one, copyrights or copyright protection in a common law perspective works for a bunch of things, like legal templates. I think people don't realize, I get a lot of questions from people, well, I got my legal templates, or I used the contract that I signed with my coach. Can I use this in my business with my clients? No, You can't. You'd be
Oh,
violating intellectual property law. So just like a blog post, you can't go to someone's blog, copy it, paste it, put it up on your blog, pretend it's yours. The same thing for legal contracts and legal documents. Don't go to someone's website and copy their privacy policy. It's written by an attorney. By the way, we're also small business owners, just like everybody else.
mm-hmm.
That intellectual property protection belongs to us. You would need our express written permission to use it in your own business, just like you
Got
would
it.
a graphic, an image, a blog post, a social media, right? People copy and paste people's social media captions. That's also protected. So anytime you want to use something, number one, definitely do not just give them credit. A lot of people do that. They're like, credit, image credit to at da 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 da. That's going to get you in
Okay.
trouble because now they know you're using it and you didn't ask them, right?
Right. Okay.
And number two, which is actually should be number one, the most important point, get written confirmation from the person who created that work that you can use it. And sometimes
Got
that's
it.
challenging because maybe their blog post was written by somebody else. Maybe that image, although taken by a photographer, actually belongs to the person who purchased that image, right? Not the photographer. So make sure that you're getting your written permission, expressed written permission from the owner of that original work before you use it anywhere, website, in your business, even if it's behind closed doors in your business. I've had so many clients that come to me and they're like, so I need contract templates because the attorney that I was using, I didn't ask and she found out and I got sued and now I can't use her contracts anymore.
Great.
So, so it doesn't matter what you are, even if it's behind closed doors in your business, make sure that you're asking people for permission. And it could be an email. It doesn't need to be anything formal. It's
So,
better,
okay.
but
I've written, and my copywriters have written over 200 blogs on my website, right? So I have a couple questions about that because I know there's other people that blog. So how do you go about like copywriting like all of these blogs when the ideas, that obviously the writing is original, ideas are everywhere. We learn different things from different people all of the time, and we synthesize all of these ideas into our own original, pieces of writing. How do you copyright, like, or should I be worried about copywriting all of the blogs that we've written?
yeah, so ideas are not protected by law. You think
Okay.
about like, I don't know, how many romance novels have we read? And it's kind of
Right.
like the same general preface, right? Like
Right.
you think about like romantic comedies, right? Like boy meets girl, whatever.
Right.
Boy
Right.
falls in love, girl falls in love with other boy, right? Like
Right.
ideas are not able to be protected to a certain degree, right? There's patents, which is a whole nother conversation.
Right. Right.
Um, but the way that you convey an idea is protected through a copyright in terms of like the exact language that you're using. So someone can't write like a Harry Potter book and just
Hmm.
change the names. You know what I mean? They're like, well, it's not exactly the same. It is exactly the same. So
Okay.
a couple things. From a practical legal perspective, you can file for copyright in what's called a collection of work. So if
Okay.
there's a photographer that photographed, I don't know, a NASCAR race, and it was some famous race, and they got like 500 images, 20 images, 30, whatever it may be, you can file that as a collection, and that will be one fee, and that's going to protect a whole collection, right? Like an artist does a collection of paintings. That's going to be
Okay.
protected through a collection. So they do make it cost effective there. So if you have a bunch of blog posts, you can submit them as a collection rather than do like 200 blog posts individually and pay those individual fees.
Gosh, I can't even imagine what that would cost.
It's actually not that bad. It's not too bad.
Okay.
They make copyrights a lot more affordable because they want people to do it, number one, and number two, because they realize that most people are pumping out a ton of content, right? So they
Right.
understand that perspective. Um, and then the other part of it I forgot where I was going with this. I was going to talk about trademarks in terms of an idea. But if you have a certain way that you're talking about something or training or whatever, consider naming that methodology.
Got it.
If you're naming that methodology, you can protect it with a trademark.
Okay.
Also, if you have graphics, flowcharts, handouts, workbooks, those are all protected by a copyright. People can't replicate those, but they can certainly take a concept like yoga. How many different types of yoga is there
Right.
out there? Like flow yoga, kundalini yoga, hot yoga.
Right.
It's all the same movement, but it's a different way to do it. So you can't protect the idea necessarily, but you can protect the accompanying work of art, and you can protect the name.
Got it. Okay. One question I have, and this came up the other day with my designer, and that was when we're choosing brand colors for a new client, for instance, are the big companies like the Chase, the Home Depots, the whoever of the world, are they allowed to trademark or copyright a specific color?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So there is a concept in trademark there where something is ineligible for a trademark if it's what's considered to be merely descriptive, and I'll let you know how this applies to a color. But I can't ever trademark the phrase online business attorney because it's merely describing what I'm doing. It would prevent anybody else from using online business attorney. And that works in a similar fashion with colors. The only way that you could trademark something that is merely descriptive is if it then steps out of being applicable to everyone and really creates its own unique identity or own unique brand. And the trademark office does allow you some time to prove that you can do that. So if you think about something like Marie Forleo's B School, right? Like, or if let's say it was called like business school, right? People know you say B School, everybody knows what B School is. Right? It's kind of stepped out of being merely descriptive into its own identity. You think about Tiffany's. You show someone that Tiffany's box color, they're going to know it came from Tiffany's. It's now come out of just being whatever hex code color that is into its own brand identity. So
can someone not use that Tiffany color in their brand?
No. They'll
They
get
can't.
in a lot of trouble. No, you identify with it. It's like what's the tool, Ryobi, the tool company.
Okay.
They have like that bright green, like all their tools are like that bright green, right?
Right.
Like it's created its own identity. If you see you see a billboard with Tiffany's blue on it and that's literally the only thing on there, what are you going to think? You're going to think it's a Tiffany's promoted billboard.
Right.
So you would get in trouble. But it is very, very challenging to protect a color. If you look at like Pantone, they have their like color of the year every single year that they come out with, which I think is like so cool. But they're making an attempt to step it outside of just being a color, right? So 99% of us will not be able to do this.
Okay.
But and again, it has to be like if you're like I don't know, if you're selling like a plumbing service and you use the Tiffany's blue, is that going to violate? Depends on how much. Like no one's going to go into the plumbing website and go, it's a Tiffany's plumber. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're going to go on there and go, God, they're using a lot of the Tiffany's blue color. Not that you would ever want to use that color to promote plumbing services, but
exactly.
You get it. Yeah.
Right.
So it does have to be specific. It does have to be unique. It is very challenging to do. And it's mostly just reserved for huge companies, mostly worldwide companies.
Got it.
That are going to have the ability to do this.
I see. Okay. some of the other things that I know, there's certain like legal documents that we need to have in our business. So I think of like, terms and conditions and privacy policy on our website. Help people understand what is the ramification of not having like terms and conditions and privacy policies on your website.
Yeah. So let me tell you really quickly what you should have on your website, and then I'll kind of like link each one.
Okay.
Okay. So number one, your privacy policy. Hands down, every website, as long as it's live, you can have a standalone image that says coming soon. You have to have your privacy policy on there. What that document does is lets your visitors know the type of data that you're collecting when they visit your website. By default, you're collecting IP addresses, which is a data locator. So if you were to go to the back end of your website and you were to see, right, 100 people from the US, 200 people from Canada, whatever it may be, that's a data locator. That's through your IP address. So you are collecting data, even though you don't think you are.
Okay.
That also needs to be on pop-ups. If you have a pop-up that's like, join my newsletter, you need to have your privacy policy. You're clearly getting someone's email address. That's data. So that needs to be on there too.
Okay.
You can be fined or penalized for either not having a privacy policy or having one that is not legally compliant. There are a bunch of different laws. There are national laws. There are international laws that have to have specific legal language in your privacy policy. So if you have one that doesn't have the right legal language, which is why don't go to Joe Schmo's Plumbing and steal their privacy policy, because it may not have the right legal language on it.
Okay.
Also, I really encourage people not to use the default ones from like Squarespace or whatever, because they also have language in there that says replace this with one that you get from your attorney, basically.
Right. Okay.
The fines are about $2,500 per visitor to your site.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty hefty. They're not like crazy going after people, but there is a site that you can report people and you can put someone's site on there. So if you piss some people off, you can probably get fined. But anyway, so there's that one. Terms and conditions is protecting the content on your site. So it's telling your visitors, everything on here is my intellectual property. You can't use it without my express written permission.
Okay.
Now, again, we talked about trademarks and copyrights. Trademarks and copyrights, getting a full registration for those is like a validation that's saying, I did start this and this is mine. Your terms and conditions is a notice to your visitors saying, this is my blog post. This is my content. These are the names of my services that I came up with.
Right.
Not having one of those eliminates your ability to go after someone if they replicate your website or use content from your website without your permission.
Okay.
And then the last document that I recommend that people have is something called a disclaimer.
Okay.
It's letting the visitors on your site know, hey, everything on this site is for general informational purposes only. I'm not giving any medical, legal, financial advice. I'm not diagnosing, treating, or curing anything. Also, every testimonial on my site is the words of my client. In no way is that a guarantee of working with me, right? We've all like stayed up too late and seen those like diet and weight loss exercise infomercials that say like results not typical. That's protected through your disclaimer.
Okay.
And not having a disclaimer is going to take away your ability if someone comes and they say, well, on your website, it says that this person lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. So how come I didn't, right?
Right.
So, and also letting people know, I'm not giving you any type of advice per se. Everything's general and informational. Now, some businesses don't necessarily need a disclaimer. It just depends on your type of business. If you're selling t-shirts, you probably don't need a disclaimer. I mean, maybe you want to have one on there that says like, you may be allergic to something in the cotton or whatever.
Right. Okay.
Business coach, maybe not as much. Fitness coach, 100%. If you hold a license in anything like an RN license, 100% you need a disclaimer on your website. So every company is different. I always recommend putting one out there. It's kind of like a CYA, right? Like,
got it.
Why not have it? Just in case you get that rogue person that's like, you told me to invest in my business. So, but those are the three that I recommend.
Okay. And then very briefly, because we're kind of getting long, and so I want to be like just cognizant of people's time when they're listening. very briefly, like what would be like the legal contracts that you definitely, if you're a coach, what are the legal contracts you definitely want to have in place?
Yeah, I'll be fast.
Okay.
One-on-one clients, you need a one-on-one client agreement.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working in a group setting, so group coaching, mastermind, you have an evergreen course that runs on its own, you need what's called a terms of use. It's a little box that they check when they go to the checkout page. And the differences are you're working one-on-one with someone versus you are working in a group setting. Let's say you launch your course, you go to bed, you wake up, someone has signed up for, like 5 people have signed up for your course.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to go to them and say, hey, thanks for signing up. Here's the contract that you need to sign. They're not actually legally obligated to sign that.
Okay.
Once they've paid you for that
Right.
course. So that little checkbox is, if it's a hyperlink, like we've all purchased a candle
Mm-hmm.
or something online, you check that little terms of service. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, but it's for a digital product.
Okay.
Similar things in both, such as payment information, disclaiming language, confidentiality, non-disclosure, but different in the sense of you're dealing with an individual versus a group.
Okay. And then at least I have, and maybe, I'm sure some coaches do, like I would think that the contract between a team member and yourself would be different, correct? Like a subcontractor agreement.
Yeah, and it depends too on the state that you're in and what the duties that they're performing. What I mean by that is most people are hiring independent contractors,
Mm-hmm.
but if you are in a state that has strict rules for who can be an independent contractor and who can be an employee, such as the state of California,
Don't say it. Don't say it. That's where I'm from.
Yeah. So California has a law called AB 5 that they passed. God, it must have been 8 years ago, maybe.
Yes.
And that gives you it's a 3-pronged test. It gives you very specific guidelines for who can be an employee and who can be an independent contractor. Typically, if they're doing something that's within the normal course of your business. So like if I have a law clerk that works for me, that's probably going to be an employee and not an independent contractor. If I have someone who is running my social media, that's probably going to be an independent contractor and not an employee. So if you have an independent contractor, and again, check on your state, then use an independent contractor agreement. No big deal. It has confidentiality language in there. It has specific language that states who owns the intellectual property that they're creating, right? If you have like I have one with my social media manager that says, you create the stuff, but it belongs to my company.
Right.
And that's really important. If you have an employee, then you need, depending on your state, you need to speak with an employment attorney and determine the exact language that you need to have in an employment contract. That's a whole different area of law. So majority of the time, we just need an independent contractor agreement. But again, check with your state, see if you have strict rules. And if you do, then you may need an employment contract instead of an independent contractor agreement.
Okay. So we've given listeners a lot to think about. Tell us how and what you can help with. If a coach is needing, trademarks or copyright or contracts or, terms and conditions or privacy policies or anything like that, what can you specifically help online coaches with, like, let's say in the United States?
Well, it sounds like you kind of almost listed them all there. So I'm doing my job. I can assist people in all of the United States with filing for your LLCs or your corporations.
Okay.
I can assist with contracts, and that would be website documents, the 3 that I mentioned, client agreement, terms of use, and then terms of service if you are selling products on your website and you don't have clients.
Okay.
And those are all templates, and I can also create custom contracts, but the templates are 80 to 90% of people just need templates.
Got it.
It's super affordable, payment plans, all the fun things. I can also assist with trademarks and copyrights. Perfect.
Wow. You can do it all. Perfect. This is so why I contacted you, because I just think that this is like so important. I mean, I know, like, I myself am like guilty of not protecting my business the way I need to. And it's definitely got me thinking about what I need to be doing differently. And I hope that it gets everyone out there that's listening just food for thought, and just do what you can. I mean, I know that we probably could not necessarily afford everything all at one time, but just make it just as important as your marketing or your finances or your operations, protecting yourself legally. Make that just as important as everything else.
Yeah. And can I also say, one lesson that I learned in my business was leaving it to the experts, right? Like I tried to build my own website. I tried to do my own social media. I tried to, piecemeal all the things myself. And you just got to know when you need to leave it to someone and kind of take that off your hands.
Yes.
And know the things that you need to do in your business yourself. But and just start somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah. That's part of being a CEO of your business, is knowing that you need to stay in your zone of genius and you need to outsource all of the other pieces that are not in your zone of genius.
Yeah.
So let's end on a fun note, because this is heavy stuff that can be scary. I know I feel a little bit of fear, like, oh my God, I need to get my privacy policy, like, So let's end on a positive note and on a high note, and let's talk about, tell me like a podcast or a book or a TV show that you're currently like loving right now.
I have to admit, I am a reality TV junkie.
Okay,
I watch almost every single season of the Real Housewives, although I'm not watching the current version of New York.
Okay.
But I'm a huge Bravo fan. So I watch like Southern Charm, Summer House, all the Real Housewives. For me, it's like at the end of the day, when my kids go to bed and I close my laptop down, I just want to watch somebody else go crazy in their own lives, It makes me feel a little bit sane.
It's funny because we watch a lot of the reality love shows like Love is Blind and Married at First Sight and The Ultimatum. And that's what my spouse and I do. We watch it for like comic relief and just like, seriously, like they just did that. Like, oh my God, like that relationship's never going to last. Like, so
right,
we're grateful that we have a really healthy and wonderful marriage. And it's just something that we watch to just for, like you said, release.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a good sounding board. I do have to say that a podcast that I'm loving recently is one that's called My First Million. And I don't really know a lot about the host, but it's these two guys and they interview like TikTok stars and products owners and and they basically talk through like how they built their business.
Okay.
It's so interesting. So
I am definitely going to add that one to my listening list.
Yeah, it's a great one. So thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate our time today. That's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Boosting Business Breakthroughs podcast. Want to hear more business breakthrough ideas? I'll be back next week with a new episode to help you grow your coaching business. If you enjoyed listening, make sure you subscribe, leave us a rating, and tell all your coach friends where to find us. Head over to boostingbusinessbreakthroughs.com to learn more. Thanks for listening, and remember, your next business breakthrough is waiting for you.